one, this is going to be a good one. So, all right, we are live. Glad to have y'all with us. Those of you on Facebook who are joining us, it's good to have you. Y'all will start checking in here in just a moment. Pray for Jeff Mann and myself today as we, as soon as church is over and lunch and so forth, Jeff and I will be heading to Kentucky to my Bible college I graduated from. We're having an alumni conference up there. Jeff's just going to hang out, go with me. So we'll go do that for the next couple of days. It'll be fun, but it's going to be good.
Go by himself. It's his other significant.
His other.
Yeah. I could have went by myself, but it also involves a golf day, and
I was going to say sometimes Jeff gets in on a lot of your trips.
Jeff does that, so he likes to go. And also, praise report for those of you who care. I submitted 2 of my 5 chapters yesterday, so things are being written. I mean, it's really now these are the 2 chapters that if you were to actually pick up my dissertation to read it, you would skip these 2. These are the technical methodology and results of the statistical test. Nobody really reads them, but you got to have it there to prove that what you're saying is really there. So anyway, that's done. I've got a little bit more to go, but got 4 people checked in with us now. Glad to have you all with us, so we can go ahead and get started. As you all recall, the last few weeks we have been doing a study through the book of Proverbs, studying the fear of the Lord. So go ahead and open your Bibles if you got them with you to Proverbs chapter 8. That's what we're going to be hanging out for a while today. But we're going to be looking at the fear of the Lord is. The fear of the Lord is. And today it is the hatred of evil. The fear of the Lord last week, if you recall, is the beginning of knowledge and wisdom. That is the motto, basically, of the book of Proverbs. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge and wisdom. That fear is a respect and a reverence. It's awe. It's wonder. It's a proper understanding of who God is and who we are, and then how we all fit in His created order. The book of Proverbs is written and it's intended for the reader to gain wisdom. It's the proper application of this knowledge that we're going to be gaining, this insight, this understanding. It's discretion for daily living. If you recall, the audience of the book of Proverbs, it basically is everybody. It goes from the simple and the young to the wise and the foolish. So those who need discernment, those who need to be prudent, it's for them. For those who are already wise, it's for them as well, because those who are wise understand that even those who already know need to know more. So that's one of the marks of wisdom. So it's written for everyone. In fact, when we get into this week, if you look at chapter 8, you'll see that someone is speaking other than the father figure or the mother figure that you read a lot in Proverbs. Because often you'll read, it'll start with, my son, hear my words, or my son, understand what I'm teaching you. In fact, I need to back up a little bit for you all. A couple of weeks ago, as we studied the first week and we talked about the fear of the Lord, and we talked about in chapter 1, it said in chapter 1, verse 20, it starts making I statements. You didn't listen to me. You didn't take my warnings. You wanted to do it your way, so I let you, and I laughed at you, right? That I insinuated that was God speaking, and it is not. Okay? It always terrifies me when I do further study into something and come back and realize I told y'all something that's really wrong. So it's not God speaking, saying He's laughing. It's wisdom. Wisdom has been personified and given the personality of someone to speak. And wisdom is saying, I tried to instruct you in my ways and you wouldn't listen to me. Now, in the grand scheme of things, wisdom comes from the Lord. So wisdom, it's kind of coming from God. But I just wanted to make it clear to y'all that actually is wisdom speaking right there in chapter 1 when we studied that, not God Himself. And we have the same situation going on in chapter 8. Wisdom is speaking again. And when you get down to verse 13, you read, the fear of the Lord is hatred of evil. Pride and arrogance and the way of evil and perverted speech I hate. I is wisdom again speaking. In fact, we know in verse 12 it tells us it's wisdom because it says, I, wisdom, dwell with prudence, and I find knowledge and discretion. At its most basic definition, what would you say evil is? If you had, it tells us that the fear of the Lord is hatred of evil. So we need to first start off with, what is evil? Don't give me examples. This is one of those things that sometimes that you just know it. You know what's evil, but how would you define it?
Anything against God.
Satan, anything against God. Okay, anything else? Sins, okay. Sins are evil. Evil actions, evil deeds, okay. Well, you all are on the right track. Basically, at its most basic, evil is just anti-God. Anything that would be against God is evil. Evil thoughts, evil words, evil actions, evil company that you keep, evil worship, evil doctrines, anything that is contrary to God and His will for your life is evil. Now, we don't like to talk that way. We don't want to consider ourselves things we do as evil. We save the word evil for things like Hitler or Mussolini. We save the word evil for terrorists who take innocent lives on 9/11. We save the word evil for the whole industry of abortion. We save the word evil for things that it depends on the topic we're talking about, but it's the most degraded, the most anti-God things we can think of. We think of that as evil. We don't want to think about our tendency to gossip as evil. We don't want to think about that particular sin in your life that you're just unwilling to let go of as evil. We'll call it something else. We'll give it a name that makes it less threatening. We'll give it a name that makes it more acceptable. But that's the problem with our culture, is that we've made sin, we've made evil acceptable, and we're told we're to be tolerant of it, when in fact God makes it very clear here in chapter 8 that if you're going to fear God, if you're going to have the right foundation for the knowledge of Him that you're going to grow in, if you're going to be someone wanting to live your life in a way of wisdom and apply this knowledge of God properly, then you have to have the proper view of evil. And it's to hate it, because that's what God does. Breaking the law of God is evil. In short, as I think it was Kelly said over here, it's sin. Our sin is evil. Our sin separates us from God, and it brings us guilt and shame, anxiety, and confusion. God desires holiness for His people, but we are continually bombarded with having to overcome our natural tendency to do evil. We are naturally, morally evil people. But thank the Lord that He gave us His gift, Jesus Christ, to help us overcome that. He has taken the price. He's paid the price we owe, and He has helped us to stand righteous before God because of His gift to us. So what are we to do with evil? What, according to wisdom, the fear of the Lord is demonstrated in our lives by our hatred for evil. So how do you define hate?
You want to have nothing to do with it.
You want to have nothing to do with it, okay? Anybody else? Is hate another one of those words that you just know it? You just know what it means, and it's hard to put words into describing it? You know, we tell our kids, like when our kids are growing up and they say, I hate somebody. You know, I hate someone. No, we don't use hate. I mean, we don't want to talk about hating, because hating's bad. You don't want to do that. In fact, often we consider hatred in and of itself as evil. But actually, it's the proper response to evil is to hate it. It's a very strong dislike. It's an intense dislike. But it's more than that. It carries with it an idea of decreasing in status. You remove the hated thing from its place of prominence in your life. To hate evil actions, thoughts, or behaviors It is a conscious effort. It isn't something that you can just decide willy-nilly, I'm just going to hate that. You have to make the effort and determine within yourself that you are not going to embrace that anymore. That evil action, that evil attitude, that evil desire. You hate, or as the definition says, you intensely dislike your smart mouth. So you do as James says in James 1:26, and you put a bridle on your tongue. That takes effort. That takes a lot of energy. Have you ever noticed when you are tired is when you are more likely to spout off? Because you've let your guard down. You're hangry, yeah. And heaven forbid you be hangry and tired. Woo, that's a double threat right there. So bridling your tongue is a real example of hating evil. You hate the gossip. You hate the way you speak to people. You hate those things in your life. So you do as James said, you bridle your tongue. You hate your evil behaviors. So you remove your sexual immorality. You remove your fits of anger. You ever notice, now think about this, if you tend to find yourself always having a fit, perhaps you're the common denominator. You have a fit at work, you have a fit at home, you have a fit out with your friends, you let things rile you when you're driving, you let things get you mad and angry when you're watching the news. You are the common denominator. It's your fit of anger that you need to let go of. So you decide that behavior needs to be hated and put away. And then the idols that you place as a higher value on than God, you remove them from their place of prominence in your life. Now we don't necessarily have carved images that we would bow down to or that we would worship. However, let me just say this parenthetically on the side, and you take it for what it's worth. Don't have other religious statues in your house. That's just opening the gate for Satan. Okay? Yeah, those little Buddhas are cute. He's got a big fat belly that people like to rub. Okay, whatever. It's not just a decorative piece. That is a symbol of false worship. Evil worship. So if those are in your house, let me encourage you, get rid of them.
What about the rosary?
That, can I be honest with you? I really don't know what that even represents. I know it's from the Catholic faith, but I don't know anything about it.
It's when they pray.
I know it's part of their prayers.
They count the beads, and when they get to a certain one, they pray for a certain.
Okay.
And then they count and they pray for a certain, and I don't know what the certain is, but I have a lot of Catholics where I work, so they've explained it to me like that.
Nothing wrong with prayer,
Yeah,
but but as long as it's
one from the Vatican City.
that's a nice souvenir. You know,
I mean, I don't know what it means.
As long as you're praying to God through the power of the Holy Spirit.
I'm not praying by beads or anything.
Right. It's just keeping you on track. It's like
my mind, I wouldn't remember what bead I was on. Oh Lord, and I'd start over again.
Bless her heart. So, but though we don't necessarily have we need to get back on track here. We may not have carved images, but we have idols in our lives. Anything that takes the place of God. Many in the Baptist church right now, because that's the one I can speak of, because that's the one I work and live in. In the Baptist church right now, one of the greatest idols in the life of family is their children. They doing whatever is necessary to make sure their kid gets whatever they're after. They bow and they sacrifice their kids on the idol and the altar of sports. If your life, think about your weekend. Do you make your plans for the weekend around church? Or do you make plans, and if church got in the way, do you let the worship of God go so that you can go do whatever else you had planned? We was talking in the other class, I was talking about the fact that our daughter would love to go to Hamilton. That's the go see that musical. That's the illustration I decided to use because I decided to stay away from football. You can do with it what you want. So I decided to stay away from football this time. But she wants to go see Hamilton really, really bad. So if let's say we get tickets to go see Hamilton, it's not going to probably be in this city. We're going to have to go somewhere else, maybe Memphis or maybe Chicago, somewhere else to see it. And all of our travel plans, all of our plans for that trip will revolve around what we have given preeminence of that trip, and that would be making sure that we're at that musical on time and in our seats. But we don't treat God that way. We plan everything else around, and then if church happened to get in the way because we don't give church and coming to his house to worship him, we don't give it the preeminence it needs in our life, that's the first thing we drop. And now hear me, I know there are times when you're on vacation, so you're not, that's one thing, but you're not on vacation 25 or 30 weeks out of the year. And right now, Amanda is? Okay, yeah, so, yeah, so, other than Amanda, no, so, I'm just kidding, man, it's all good.
I don't care.
I know you don't. I know you don't.
I'm still gonna keep vacation.
You're just gonna keep vacationing. So listen, if you say, well, I'm not on vacation 25 or 30, 25, let's say 25, 26 would be half of the Sundays of the year, because there's 52 weeks in a year, right? So consider that. If you only come one out of every other Sunday, you've missed 26. You've missed half of them. And you think, well, I wouldn't do that. Go back and check your records. I can. I've got the attendance records for this class.
You do that?
I do do that.
You do that?
I do do that. I do that. So it's where is your, now that's between you and God. All right, now it's between you, God, and me, really, because I've got the attendance records. But go look at it. Go look back at how often you're there. I'm not saying you need to be here 50 out of 52 weeks a year. That's I'm not even here 50 out of 52 weeks a year. I miss 3. I get 3 Sundays off a year, so I take them. Of course, I need to get away from y'all from time to time. Y'all know how it is, but you're still my favorites. But it's, unless you ask the other class. So anyway, we got to put God. We have to put God in the prominent place that he belongs. With those hated behaviors, you hate your evil attitudes, like your jealousy, your anger, the envious ambitions, and you consciously decide to take them from a place of preferred status and instead follow the words of Paul by demonstrating a fear of the Lord, by living by the fruit of the Spirit, love and joy, patience, peace, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. You decide, I'm going to put these evil thoughts, these evil attitudes, these evil behaviors away, and I'm going to live and submit my life to following God. Now, I called that a preferred status. You're taking it away from the preferred status, and actually had someone in the other class question that. They're like, well, I wouldn't call it preferred, and I said, I do, because you're unwilling to let it go. You got to let it go, Elsa, right? So, talking about Andrew earlier, he was he got up at about 1 in the morning that night after for those of you watching on Facebook with us, this week Andrew got hit with a rock. No fault of his own. He just got hit with a rock. A kid threw it, and it caused 6 stitches above his eye. And about 1 in the morning, he was having some, pain, I guess you could call that, some discomfort from it. It was throbbing a little bit. So he comes into our room about 1 in the morning, and he asks for Tylenol. So he gets his Tylenol, and he goes back to bed. Well, that woke both Peg and I up. So we're sitting there. And when he went back to bed, we heard a sound. I'm like, my eyes open. I'm laying there looking at Peg. What was that? And she goes, I don't know. And then a few seconds later, we hear, okay, so CPAP off, shorts on, let's go see what's going on. So I go into his room, and he's sitting up in bed. And I'm like, what is wrong? What is that sound? He said, I was punching my pillow. I'm like, why were you? He goes, I'm mad. It's 1 in the morning. 1 in the morning. He's mad. And I'm like, why are you mad? He said, well, back up a little bit. No one has claimed responsibility for the throwing of the rock. We thought it was one kid, but now we were thinking it was another one. And in his mind, the one kid that we thought it was, we had told Andrew a few times, man, I'm sorry that happened. He's got a soft, gentle heart, and he was feeling bad about it. Don't know if he was saying sorry because he's the one who did it, or was he saying sorry that Andrew had to go through it. We're not sure how it was. But the other kid, the one that we think it might have been, acted like nothing ever happened. He said he's never apologized, Dad. I said, okay, that's a real emotion. I don't want to trivialize it. I don't want to trivialize an emotion a 15-year-old's going through when us at 35, 45, and 55 struggle with the same thing. He's struggling with the fact that he's not been apologized to for the 6 stitches he had to have in his upper brow. So I just talked to him a little bit about that. And I was like, you're up at 1 o'clock in the morning mad about it, punching your pillow, and that kid's sleeping. You've got to let it go. Because you can't control whether or not he apologizes to you. Only when you're hurting, it's not bothering him a bit that you're up at 1 in the morning. It's bothering you. You have to let it go. I told him I was in March 5th, 1988. I was pitching in the batting cage as a freshman baseball team, and a senior hit a ball and laid me out, hit me right square in the eye. I had to have reconstructive facial surgery, had to put all that back together. I don't have cartilage left at the end of my nose, but it's really, I did that just for you. So all that, I had to be on homebound teaching for 3 weeks, and I said, Andrew, you realize that was 1988. I still haven't gotten an apology from that kid. Now, that's baseball. Accidents happen. But anybody, typically, when you're going to be, man, my bad. I'm sorry that happened to you. His parents called a few days later to check on me. They didn't apologize either. We have no control over whether or not someone else is going to apologize. The anger we hold is evil. The anger we hold on to, the frustration, the confusion, the anxiety, all those things are actually sinful things. Those are evil things. We need to let go of them, because the proper way to handle that, the opposite of that anger, is forgiveness. That's what we're called to do. I read a meme on Facebook one time that said, when you just can't forgive, pray. Can I back up from that for a minute? That's not an option for us. It is not an option for a follower of Jesus Christ to not be able to forgive. Now, struggle, I understand. We're human. We have emotions. There are things we battle. But we're not supposed to just let it be. This is just how it is. I'm human. I can't forgive. Then are you following Jesus, or are you not? Are you willing to do it Jesus' way, or are you going to keep doing it your way remember chapter 1 when we talked about chapter 1 verse 20 and on down through there, when wisdom is speaking, and wisdom says, I've tried to instruct you in the way to go, and you've been unwilling to hear it, so now you get what you've asked for, basically, is paraphrase. You want the anger, you want the frustration, the anxiety, and the confusion. Right now, there's a power that comes with that. So you've put it in a preferred status. You don't want to let it go. There's a power of going, they hurt me, and I deserve for them to ask me to forgive them. I deserve for them to apologize. You've put it in preferred status, when what you're supposed to do is have a hatred for it, a strong dislike. You put those evil ambitions away. You consciously decide to take them from their preferred status, and you instead follow the words of Paul, like we said, and you work on exhibiting the fruit of the Spirit rather than the fits of anger. Those who fear the Lord will live their lives through knowledge and wisdom, and they will hate evil. Going back to Proverbs 8:13, we read that there were three specific things that wisdom hates. Wisdom hates pride and arrogance, the way of evil, and perverted speech. If we read the scripture again, it says, the fear of the Lord is hatred of evil, pride and arrogance, and the way of evil, and perverted speech I hate. There is very little difference in these verses between pride and arrogance. Pride appears to be thinking too highly of yourself or speaking too well of yourself. And instead of loving others, pride causes you to despise others. Finally, the prideful person trusts in himself rather than trusting in the Lord. Proverbs 16:18 tells us that pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before the fall. We have an example of pride leading someone to a fall in 2 Chronicles. Peg, that's for you. 2 Chronicles chapter 26. We've been reading in our daily Bible reading in 2 Chronicles. We just finished it not too long ago. And there was if you read in chapter 26, you're reading of a king named Uzziah. Uzziah reigned, I think it was like 55 years. He reigned a long time, and it was a peaceful time. God gave him grace, and God gave him growth, and he became strong as a king, because it tells us in chapter 26, verse 4, he did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, according to that his father Amaziah had done. And he set himself to seek God in the days of Zechariah, who instructed him in the fear of God. And as long as he sought the Lord, God made him prosper. Uzziah was a good king. He's looked on favorably as a good king for Israel. He's looked on for Judah. Excuse me. He's looked on favorably as a good king for Judah, and the times that he served was seen as prosperous. The army was built up. The treasury was built up. Everything was being prospered because he sought God. He lived his life in the fear of the Lord. And it said in verse 15, and his fame spread far, for he was marvelously helped till he was strong. And often when we're reading things in the scripture, we'll find that word but. And we love it when it follows with God, but God. But in this case, it says, but when he was strong, he grew proud. Anybody following along there? Mm-hmm. When he was strong, he grew proud. What's the next line?
To his destruction.
To his destruction. For he was unfaithful to the Lord his God, and entered the temple of the Lord to burn incense on the altar of incense. So he stepped out of his place. He stepped out of where he belonged as king and tried to step into the role of a priest. We mentioned earlier the idea of evil worship. This is evil worship, because it's worship being done contrary to the way God would have it done. He steps out and he goes into the temple to burn incense, which is the job of the priest. The king isn't supposed to do that. But God has prospered him so much, he has done so well, he has taken his eyes off of God and trusted in himself instead, and has gone into the temple to burn incense. And it says, Azariah the priest went in after him with 80 priests of the Lord who were men of valor. Don't you think us men of God are simple little, weaklings? Men of valor. Come on. And they withstood King Uzziah and said to him, it is not for you, Uzziah, to burn incense to the Lord, but for the priests, the sons of Aaron, who are consecrated to burn incense. Go out of the sanctuary, for you have done wrong, and it will bring you no honor from the Lord God. They stood up to the king. How do you handle it when you step out of your place and someone who is close to you, someone who is a follower of God, someone who loves you, stands up with you and says, you were wrong? How do you handle it? Do you handle it in wisdom? Do you handle that as advice from someone who loves you? Do you handle that as someone who is willing to admit you're wrong? Or do you handle it like Uzziah did? It tells us in verse 19, then Uzziah was angry. Now, he was absolutely wrong. There's no doubt. I have to admit, this can be me. I can be somebody that I might not be right, but I'm not in doubt, and you're not going to tell me I'm wrong. Lord, forgive me for being that way. But chances are I'm not the only person in the room, and I'm not the only person watching live on Facebook who does that. He was angry. He didn't accept the criticism. Now he had a censer in his hand to burn incense, and when he became angry with the priest, leprosy broke out on his forehead in the presence of the priests in the house of the Lord by the altar of incense. Long story short, when the leprosy broke out, he immediately is considered ceremonially unclean. He can no longer be there. Anywhere he is will be unclean. So now they have to do a lot of ceremonial cleaning of the temple. They escort him. In fact, I don't think his feet even touched the ground. Those 80 priests. Now imagine the courage it took for these men of God to stand up before their king and say, you're wrong. You're not supposed to be in here doing this. And then to escort him out of the temple. That took sometimes it takes more courage to do what's right than it does to just compromise what you believe. Verse 21, and King Uzziah was a leper to the day of his death. And being a leper lived in a separate house, for he was excluded from the house of the Lord. And Jotham his son was over the king's household, governing the people of the land. He became strong, which made him prideful to his destruction. 55 years of reigning. His epitaph is, he was a leper. One moment of pride. Do you ever find yourself there where one moment of pride, you wish you could take that back? One moment of anger, and anger, by the way, is based in pride, because someone's told you you're wrong, or someone has done something that you feel is against you, that has riled you up. It's anger is left in pride. And you ever done anything in a moment of anger and immediately wish you hadn't done it? I'm sure we all have. I like the meme that's on Facebook of the German Shepherd jumping off the cliff to get the bird, and the caption is a decision made in a moment of anger cannot be undone. Right? We have to be wise. We have to be smart. We have to hate these things. And the more we practice the hating of pride and arrogance, the less it will have control over our lives. Not only does wisdom say he hates pride and arrogance, he also hates the way of evil. I've actually called this personal ambition. The evil way is an evil course of sinning. It's basically a person going his or her own way, which he not only chooses, but he delights in. According to Proverbs 16:25, there is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way to death. If we look at Proverbs 6:12 through 19, just flip over a page or so. Proverbs 6, starting in verse 12, we are going to read about a worthless man, a wicked man. Some translations call him a scoundrel. What we read here is evil, deceitful methods, and ways of worthless man making his personal ambitions come to be. If you start in verse 12, read what it says. It says, a worthless person, a wicked man, goes about with crooked speech. He winks with his eyes, signals with his feet, points with his finger. With perverted heart devises evil, continually sowing discord. Therefore, calamity will come upon him suddenly. In a moment, he will be broken beyond healing. And then verse 16, we know this next section. There are 6 things that the Lord hates, 7 that are an abomination to him. Haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that make haste to run to evil. All of those things are body parts, again, that are you can find the parallel to them in verses 12 through 15, the description of the wicked man, the description of the scoundrel, the way that he devises his plans and does whatever he needs to do to make sure what he's wanting to get done happens. It's all about his selfish ambitions. But then look at verse 19. A false witness who breathes out lies, and one who sows discord among brothers. It's not just about the body parts, it's about the way of being. A person is. They're a person who gives false witness and breathes out lies. One thing I can't handle is a liar. I struggle. I have a few petty pet peeves. And then I have a few that are a little more serious, and this is one of them. Don't lie to me. You ever feel that way? If you come to the church and you're needing benevolent help, you need some help with your power bill, you need some help with whatever, just tell me the truth. don't try to spin a story for me, because chances are I'm going to see through it, and then that's not going to end well when it comes to you getting help. You know, like the guy who told me one time that he'd blown out a knee because he was a paratrooper in the Rangers. I'm telling you, he sewed that a ways. Paratrooper with the Rangers, blew out his knee jumping out of an airplane. And number one, any Ranger I've ever known or any special forces people I've ever known have tattoos to prove it. You know, he has all kinds of tattoos, but none about being in the Rangers. And he's telling me this story while he's kneeling down, in a catcher kind of position, leaning up against a building. You know, but he blew out his knee. I've got bad knees. You don't sit that way. You know, just don't lie to me. And number two, don't call me a liar. What is your integrity worth? Is it worth a buck or two by saying your kid is now, under the age that would make them adult for this particular movie? Or, you know what I'm saying? As you're in line to get tickets somewhere and they say a child is 12 and under and your kid's 14 and you're going, I got a child. Well, it says right there, a child's 14. Is your integrity worth $1.50? What are you willing to sell out for? Are you a person who bears false witness? Are you one who sows discord among brothers? Are you the one who likes to keep the pot stirred? God hates that. That's evil, keeping the pot stirred. We're supposed to keep the peace. In fact, we're going to look at that in just a moment. We're not supposed to be a person who's there to see what I can get, and if I can't get it, I'm going to keep it stirred up, make sure you don't get it. That's not supposed to be us. We're supposed to be people as followers of Jesus Christ who sow peace, not discord. We're supposed to be people, as Paul said, as far as it depends on you, keep the peace. We're not supposed to be a person who's a way of evil. And then there's perverted speech. In 8:13, he tells us he hates perverted speech. Just a bit earlier, beginning in verse 6, wisdom's righteous character is illustrated by her speech. Look at verse 6 through 9. It says, "Herefore I will speak noble things, and from my lips will come what is right, for my mouth will utter truth. Wickedness is an abomination to my lips. All the words of my mouth are righteous. There is nothing twisted or crooked in them. They are all straight to him who understands, and right to those who find knowledge." Our words matter. The way we speak to one another matters. Lying and speaking in a way to try and forward our own plans is disgraceful, and God hates it. We should be a person who our speech is like that of the description given here of wisdom. We should be someone who is willing to speak, but not speak in a way that is hated. Noble things. In fact, it goes on and it tells us that that wisdom is better than jewels, and all that you may desire cannot compare with her. Be a person who's wise. I know I'm a venter. I don't know if you all are venters or not an inventor, but I'm a venter. I need from time to time to be able to get things off my chest in a safe way with someone who knows my heart and knows I just got to get this said. Anybody like that? So I have people in my life that I can speak to who they know it's not me. It's not and sometimes I need to vent to keep from exploding. You know what I'm saying? Wise man, I guess, knows his own limitations, right? So I've got some people in my life that I can go to and I can just let it out, and then when we're done, they understand. And when it's done, I'm usually looking at them going, I know I don't need to be doing this. I know that this isn't right. But I just got to I just got to let it go, Elsa, right? So there was one in my life back. His name was Dr. Jim Caslin. He was a music professor at Clear Creek Baptist Bible College when I was there. Dr. Caslin and I were really good friends. He was almost like a spiritual father. He and his wife were spiritual parents to me. They actually babysat Riley when she was brand new baby. In fact, she slept the whole time she was there. They were kind of disappointed. They kept her, let us go out to dinner. By the time we came back, she had never woke up. She slept the whole time in the carrier, and they didn't even get to hold her. So but the Caslins are just very special to us. But I remember when I was at Clear Creek, Dr. Caslin was one of my mentees, if that's the way you would put it. He was my confidant. I could go in his office, and if things were bothering me, I could just share them. And I remember walking away from there one particular time and recognized the wisdom from him, that he did not say anything in the time of my venting to affirm my attitudes. You know what I'm saying? He didn't say anything to ag me on. He didn't say anything like, hey, you deserve to feel this way, that they've treated you like that. None of that. He let me share. He would ask me questions that would probe me deeper into why I was feeling the way I did. But never did he affirm my poor behavior. That's wise. That's something we can all learn. Because often we get all caught up in the emotion of it. I can't believe they treated you like that. If I were you, and there we go, right? And we're adding to, and we're affirming this evil attitude that is going on in this person's life. Perverted speech. Our words matter. But how does this apply to us today? Often we give more credence today for some reason to New Testament passages than we do to Old Testament. And some of that's because we don't understand the Old Testament enough to really be able to apply it to our lives. But we've said previously that the book of James is really our New Testament wisdom literature. The book of James is really a very practical way of living the Christian life. If you turn to James chapter 3, we're going to see here the same kind of ideas from James, the brother of our Lord, as he writes in 3, starting in verse 13. He says, "Who is wise and understanding among you?" Listen for the same ideas. Remember the pride and arrogance, the personal ambitions, the perverted speech. Listen to what he says here. "By his good conduct, let him show his works in the meekness of wisdom. But if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast and be false to the truth. This is not the wisdom that comes down from above, but is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. For where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there will be disorder and every vile practice. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits, impartial and sincere. And a harvest of righteousness is shown in peace by those who make peace." If you follow this same thought along, he continues into chapter 4, and he talks about jealousy. He talks about the things we do because we want something and we didn't get it ourselves. We fight with one another because we have our own ambitions, our own evil desires that we're forcing them to happen. And he gets down to verse 7. He finally says, "Submit yourselves, therefore, to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you." He says, cleanse your hands. Okay, that's the way you live your life, the things you do. That's the way we act toward others. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts. That's your motives, your decision making. He says, we're double-minded. Be wretched and mourn and weep. Let your laughter be turned to mourning, and let your joy to gloom. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will exalt you. Submit yourself to him. What areas of your life, what evil desires do you have? What things that you may not wanted to, before you came in this room today, you may not have wanted to consider it to be evil, but now you see it is anti-God, it's against his will. These attitudes that you may have in your life, these behaviors, these sinful things that you're holding on to that you just don't want to let go of, because if we're honest, we'll admit sin can have some fun aspects to it. But now we see our only response isn't to be accepting of it. It isn't to be tolerant of it. It's to hate it. Submit yourself to him. We all have areas where we can learn in this. None of us have arrived. None of us perfectly submit to God in every aspect of our life. But my prayer is that today we submit more than we did yesterday. And tomorrow we will submit more than we did today. So we continue to grow in him. Be wise. You know, I'm trying to think of something clever and I just can't. You know, Spock would say, live long and prosper. Bill and Ted would say, be excellent to each other. Just be wise and love God. Follow Him. Have a fear of the Lord in your life. You guys got anything today? That's all for today. We're going to have some time here in the room. Those of you on Facebook, it's good to have you with us. Again, any questions, send them to me and I will answer anything you have if I can. If not, I'll look it up and try to answer it for you. If we can do anything for you, just let us know. We'll see you next week.